Good afternoon. We wanted to thank you for joining the Unlock Your ALM Investment, Microfocus ALM, and ALM Octane. Good day. My name is Alvin Sumter, and I'll be your moderator today for the session. Thank you. This webinar is sponsored by Microfocus and Vivid. I'm Alvin Sumter. I'm the Director of Quality Assurance and Test for ThyssenKrupp America. I've been with ThyssenKrupp for approximately 8 years. I've been in the testing space and performance testing and project management space for over 25 years, working at a variety of companies in those areas. Today we have speakers Vandan Nayak. He's the Senior Product Manager at Microfocus. He has over 15 years experience in the application lifecycle management and quality solutions. He has been leading teams of senior and technical consultants and enterprise account managers who've worked at many Fortune 1000 customers. In the last 5 years, he's been focusing more on ALM platforms and delivering next generation solutions. Also, we have Zoe Smith with us today. And Zoe is the Global Product Marketing Manager for Microfocus. She has been focusing on, Zoe is formerly a solution architect and works in pre-sales for application delivery management software. Her background is in accounting and marketing. And those are our speakers for today. I want to remind you that today's session is a live recording for all Vivid members. This recording will be posted later in the webinar section of the Vivid website and viewable for all members. Additionally, the slide deck and webinar recording will be made available for you. We'll send you a link via email once it's posted to the Vivid website. During today's session, there will be a demo. It will help if you can enlarge your presentation screen and just click on the right rectangle in the upper right corner of the presentation pane, being pointed to and being pointed to by the red arrow. Now I'd like to turn it over to Zoe Smith, who will walk us through our presentation for the day.
Thank you, Alvin. I appreciate it. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for our webinar around unlocking your Microfocus ALM investment. I'm going to start by going over a brief overview of what we want to cover today. So we want to cover a lot, and hopefully it is of value to you. Many of you are ALM and Quality Center customers, so we really want to start and present what's new in that solution, what has really been going on in ALM and Quality Center over the last year, and help educate you on some of the features that you may or may not know exist within even your current installment. Then we're going to finish the presentation by going into a little bit more about our Agile side of the ALM family with ALM Octane. Our approach today really is for you to understand the value of both ALM solutions and seeing how they work together within your house, and also letting you know that your ALM and Quality Center investment is safe and it is here to stay. So with that, we're going to start with that overview of ALM and QC. So one of the key things we've been doing is really recently talking to a lot of our customers. We've recently been collecting a lot of surveys, specifically asking customers where in your projects your methodologies are laying. So basically, what are you doing it? So on the left-hand side, what you can see is what our current ALM QC install base says this is where they're at in terms of their projects. So we see that there's a little bit more pure waterfall leaning. We're leaning towards Agile, but still pure Agile methodology takes the minimum amount of their projects. Where on the right-hand side, we see the contrast of where the overall market is. What we did is when we collected this back from many of the customers, we really realized that many of you are leaning towards Agile and you're really striving to move there with your projects, but you're not fully there yet. And we've gotten a lot of feedback that many of your projects, though, are Agile or DevOps, but some of your key projects are waterfall, and they really will be staying that way for years to come. So because every single customer is saying a lot of those projects are Agile and DevOps, but you have waterfall, we realized, hey, as a company, we need to be able to serve both of your needs. So this is where we want to say we want you to continue to use ALM to best serve the needs of your teams. This is where we introduce, hey, we have a unified ALM family. These two offerings can serve your teams end-to-end based on your project scope. So some of you may have seen an overview of this slide, but I'm going to go in review of it to really explain where we're projecting through the rest of this webinar. But as you all know, there is a shift in the IT industry. Gartner has noticed a bimodal approach in IT organizations today. How we like to place this is we're saying global enterprises often have a central, more core IT department who are really responsible for maintaining those legacy applications and providing services to the business. Traditionally, we see these core IT departments using a mix of waterfall and hybrid delivery models. And the focus is still on maintaining a high level of governance and compliance. And as a result, waterfall is still the primary methodology used here, which is completely fine. So for these projects, we like to say that ALM and Quality Center will continue to best serve these types of projects. In the same vein of thought, we are also seeing an evolution and a shift in other lines of businesses within the same company toward what we're calling fluid IT. So within that same organization that might be doing those waterfall projects or have core IT departments, we also have specific lines of business who are developing applications that are both internal and external facing, but they're looking for a more agile development methodology and accelerated delivery based on the platform of the application you're building. So what Gartner is seeing is that to have relevancy with a customer base, those companies really have to be pushing out faster releases to stay competitive and relevant. And they know that they need to have a higher level of velocity in developing and deploying new features to customers, as well as a faster way to get feedback from users. So for these type of projects, this is where we want to say that ALM Octane is probably going to be the best fit. So as you can see here, ALM is here to help you across your project needs, and we'll kind of take a look at what are the features within ALM QC to keep that relevant for you, and then also in Octane, and then how can we actually even integrate information between those two solutions. So I just talked about the changes we're seeing in the market. So many of you as QC ALM users are probably asking the question, why is ALM Quality Center still relevant to you? ALM is the largest hub for quality. It was one of the original quality management platforms and will continue to be one of the key ones used in the industry. ALM QC allows for your teams to complete end-to-end testing, starting with synchronization between your existing tools, all the way down through manual testing available online and offline, test automation, performance, and even integration into the DevOps practices. So now I'm going to expand a little bit more as to what that looks like. And we're going to focus on specifically what is new. You have been a user of ALM and QC for years, but why should you continue to use ALM? So we're going to focus and zoom in a little bit on what's new in the latest release of ALM QC, which is 12.55, and then kind of bring that into also some of the new features in Octane. But in this, we wanted to keep really two different, customers on the line in mind today. First, we want to talk to our end users. So that's going to be the testers, the business analysts, the project managers, etc. Those of you who are in the tool every day. And then also all of those of you who are site admins or project admins that are running ALM in your organization. So as you're going to see, we're going to keep these in mind while planning new features, and we really want to try to focus on requests coming in from you. So as we're going through this, be keeping in mind what aspects you would like to see in future versions of ALM and QC, and provide us feedback, because we truly do want to update our backlog based on what our customers are saying. So one of the new features that you'll notice is if you've been an ALM and QC user for years, we focus very heavily on testing. So the first feature is this new idea of a test board. So it's presented as a new tab under the test lab module. What this does is it really allows for a centralized and aggregated view of all test instances under a certain level in the test lab tree. So up until this version, a tester could have seen his tests under the test set level only, and then they had to navigate between test sets in order to review all of his assignments. So starting in this version, ALM allows users to get an aggregative view of all test instances under a given folder level of the test lab tree. What you're going to be able to see here in this screenshot, as the tester can filter by his or her name and see all the assignments under a certain cycle. Or if going up one level in the tree, the tester will see a higher aggregation level. So what we're going to be able to see here is it's filtered by release. And then we also have the aspect of really being able to manually execute tests with the run button at the top of the screen. So a manual tester kind of has a one-stop shop for all the tests that they have to run. Next feature is really the idea of collaboration. So we always continually want to keep individuals and team productivity in mind. So this version is the first to announce the integration with Microsoft Skype for Business, which is one of the most popular collaboration tools within enterprise industries. We use it in-house for sure. And so with this feature turned on, users are going to be able to easily see the availability of other stakeholders within the defect, the test, or any other entities. They're going to be able to start a chat or a call with any of those individuals, or maybe even just chat with other people who are stakeholders related to that entity. And at the beginning of that chat, the entity ID and its title will appear, so the party's always going to have that context of specifically what is being talked about in that specific discussion. And you are interested in what is the different supported versions that is available in our Help Center as well. So both of those are more end user features, but what about admins? So this is where we really want to realize that admins have some very difficult jobs when it comes to ALM. And so what you're probably aware of is the fact that exporting a project's database and repository into a single QC project file or a QCP file is limited by about 4 gigabytes. So with this release, we also have removed this limitation, and any data size can be basically exported as a QCP file. What this means is it allows a transition of projects from a server to another server without the involvement of a database admin or other stakeholders. It allows for easier switch between database types. It allows for project backup and parking or archiving of different projects as well. At the moment, there's no change from past versions where an import of QCP files is allowed on the same ALM version only, but in the future, this feature may let us offer an import between different versions as well. ALM is also now available on AWS. I don't want to go too much in depth of this, but on the screen you can see some of the key features that are allowed. If you want more information, you will be provided this PowerPoint after our presentation, and please visit that link located at the bottom of the screen. One of the common things I do want to answer is, what is Amazon RDS? And so Amazon Relational Database Services is a web service that makes it much easier to set up and operate and scale a relational database in the cloud. Amazon RDS takes over many of the, I guess you could say, more difficult or tedious management tasks of a relational database, such as backups, the high availability, and security. Something that you do see in brackets there is that Oracle is what is supported, but the AWS doesn't necessarily allow DB creator and security admin permissions in a SQL server, so the MS SQL server is not supported here, but Oracle is. Again, for more information, please follow that link at the bottom after this presentation to see if this deployment option will be right for you. Another significant enhancement to this version is the ability to do license sharing with ALM Octane. So some of you on the phone are probably very familiar with Octane is. It has been released for 2 years. Some of you may not, so hold on until the second part of our conversation today to learn more about that. But one of the things to keep in mind is that if you own an ALM license, you are able to use that license within ALM Octane today. So you can enjoy that whole entire suite of ALM and Quality Center and ALM Octane using the licenses that you already own. So with version 12.55, we have the ability to easily move those licenses from whichever solution you want to access. If you also are an Agile Manager customer, that license sharing is also available with ALM Octane. If you want more details around how to implement this, how to go about this, please contact your customer support team or your account rep, and they're going to easily be able to walk you through that process as well. So now for something many people were waiting for, that's really related to managing the life cycle of those highly regulated applications. Some of you are in industries that need to follow a very strict regulation regarding the auditability of changes and reliability of individuals to changes. So one good example of this is possibly like a pharmaceutical industry, which needs to follow the FDA regulations and digitally sign on changes made in ALM. So for this sake, we have just released an ALM electronic signature, basically for predefined projects covering the defects module, which provides a paperless yet fully traceable and auditable process where defect entities can be electronically signed following every human interaction applied on a defect. So for example, if I'm owning a defect and trying to change its status from fixed to closed, I will need to digitally sign on the change. So this predefined project is what we call a quick start project provided by our professional services and enables you to use e-signature capabilities on defects. This specific quick start project can be downloaded free of charge from our marketplace. So the link is here on the slide as well for you to click on afterwards. And in order to extend the solution over other parts of ALM across other entities, you can also work with our professional services office to get that e-signature capability across the board. So those are some of the main key features that were new when it came to ALM 12.55. But I quickly want to cover some of the features that you might have missed. When we, again, talk to these customers, and we've been surveying them recently, we realized that many of you use a lot of features in QC ALM, but you may not be aware of some of the ones that were available in more recent releases. So one of the main ones I want to bring up with that is the idea of quality of things, so QOT. Most of you, hopefully, have already gotten exposed to this new part of the ALM solution. For those who aren't, we're happy to share some of those features that were released in our 1.3 release. So what this does is this solution really lets manual tests stored in ALM to run from mobile devices in an online or even an offline mode. What we've seen is that a common use case for QOT are environments which are not pure software, such as embedded hardware and software environments or any physical thing or device in the world of IoT. So quality of things is a lean web application that's going to connect to ALM and lets manual testers run manual tests when online, or in the case that tests should be taken into the field, a field lab, or anywhere where a connection to the server is unavailable. In an offline scenario, instead of printing or using an Excel workbook, the user can download a set of tests to be executed offline and then later to get test results uploaded back to the ALM server when reconnected. QOT also lets users report new defects in either offline or online mode. So an example of what this might look like is on here on the screen. So what you see here is a very lean view of test steps in the left panel. A tester is going to easily be able to select whether a step succeeded or failed by a simple finger swipe over the step's name. And then the expected and actual results fields at the right side where the tester can report actual results, or they're also able to report a new defect. So again, this could be brought in on a tablet and anything like that into the field. So something that we also talk about, and if you've been on any of our calls recently, you understand that we talk about how Octane is so integrated and extensible into the rest of your toolchain. But we also want to point out the fact that ALM is able to do many of the same things. And so what we see here is that typically with ALM QC, you're used to integrating with UFT or load runner type testing solutions. But what happens when you want to start gaining that ground level visibility starting with your unit testing or your code level? So inside ALM, you're able to integrate with any test execution framework via Jenkins. Jenkins is going to run that test, and then those results will be back inside ALM so you have that full visibility, and then you can trace those assets such as a JUnit test or Selenium or SoapUI, as you can see on the right-hand side, and then bring those back so you can bring that traceability into entities like your requirements within ALM and Quality Center. Very briefly, this is another benefit for many of your admin positions, is the idea of easy deployment. So if you're wanting to easily deploy a new version of ALM across your staging server and into production, we have a way to do this without downtime now, and you're going to also easily be able to see the previous versions of solutions. Again, not going to get into much of this here, but just making you aware that you are able to have easier deployment options now. Another aspect for admins, as you guys are going through an upgrade, you want to be able to oftentimes prioritize what you want to upgrade first and the timing of those. And you want to be able to have someone or something in this case help assist you so you can see the progress of where you're at in the upgrade process. So what we have here is the ALM robot. It really does allow for faster upgrades, and allowing you to do multiple projects at first allows you to really see when is the best time to do many of these upgrades in one single dashboard view. Many of you also who have been using ALM QC for years have found it frustrating to not be able to easily search for features within QC. And so what we now have is the idea of ALM Global Search. So this is basically an Elasticsearch that we have built as a new capability. It's been public for more than a year now, but think of it as a Google-style search tool, which will index for you the entire ALM QC project and will help you text search across all of your data in a free language with very quick results. It'll also let you filter between different types of entities by any field and search across projects. And then each result will really include a link back into the ALM client. Another type of reporting that we want to preview is the idea of business views at a glance. So what this is going to allow you to do is really to extend the capabilities of reporting. You can often report on a single entity within the ALM QC platform itself, but what a business view can do is it can report across different entities, so across those business views of, say, requirements, defects, tests, across projects, in really creating these more complex type of tools within Excel to allow you to more easily manipulate the data. So as I'm finishing up here, I think some of the things that you're seeing is, again, I've been very feature focused because many of you have been QC ALM users for years. You know that it is of value to your team. You know exactly how it works. But I really want you to guys get the idea that there have been a lot of end user improvements that we've been seeing across the board. We've really been trying to allow you to say each and every single person, if you guys are able to upgrade to the latest version, it's going to provide value to you as the end user. So this is just a quick list of saying, this is what's in it for you. These are some of the new capabilities. We went over lots of slides, but again, we're able to do new test support. We have AWS support. We have the quality of things, collaboration, license sharing, exporting, synchronizer enhancements. So all of these are things that are going to help you on a day-to-day basis be able to speed up that time to delivery and make your job more simple with ALM and QC. Again, before I hand off to Vannon for the Octane portion of this, we really want to emphasize the fact that ALM and QC is here to help you deliver amazing applications. And that might sound cheesy, but we also want you to know that ALM QC really is continuing to be improved upon. We are constantly creating new fixes, which is leading to new features. And as you guys provide us enhancement requests, this is leading to new innovation in our platform. So for an example, just between the last release from 12.53 to 12.55, we did over 302 fixes, which led to multiple different features. We added 25 different enhancement requests to all add to the newer level of innovation. And we did this across 6 dedicated R&D and QA teams. So the best way to say this is really that ALM QC is here. We are continually serving your needs. As we talk about Octane, we don't want you to be worried as a customer that ALM QC is going anywhere. We are just adding to the ALM QC family to better serve some of your needs. So continue to feel confident that you can use your investment in ALM QC continually. Don't worry about thinking that it is going away, because it is not. We just want to be able to extend your capabilities with Octane as well. So with that, I'm going to hand this off to Vanden Naik, who is the product manager for our ALM Octane solution, and he'll talk about some of those new capabilities.
Hey, thanks, Zoe. And hi again, my name is Vanden Naik. And just like Zoe mentioned, I just want to make sure that I reemphasize that there were questions and there's a lot of collateral that you would see coming specifically from our competition around the ALM QC and the lack of investment in there, which is completely untrue. Also from capabilities as well as a release standpoint, we continue to invest in both of them parallelly. And you can see us looking at ALM and ALM Octane literally as two sides of a coin. One that has been an industry leader for a waterfall-based methodology in terms of application delivery, and one which is just growing up in terms of just having about 18 months, but looking to look towards the future in terms of an agile CI and a DevOps-based delivery in there. So with that, let me just move on to the next and the core industry trends that we look at, I'd say, in the next 3 to 5 years. So when analysts talks to us in Micro Focus and say, hey, what are some of the key things that you see from your vantage point as being the leader in quality management and lifecycle management, there are a few key themes that we see here. One is that Agile is everywhere, and Agile tooling is pretty much now a commodity. Talking about Agile capabilities just from a project management standpoint no longer are a differentiator itself. What is differentiator is actually the quality piece, because that's where you can have the definition of being able to validate the quality of the planning activities that you've been working on, and you don't want that through the plugins or through third-party integrations. You want that to be baked into your process, because now the delivery of Agile is, along with quality, is the mandate going forward. And the choice of methodologies is something also that you would see, whether it's Scrum, Scrumban, Kanban, Spotify, SAFe, LESS, DAD. There are a number of frameworks that are coming in terms of serving the enterprise or the teams, and we need to support all of those frameworks as a vendor in the lifecycle management space. DevOps, again, been a buzzword for the past few years, means different things to different people, but as Agile has now kind of been firmly rooted at the team level, not only in development teams, but kind of getting into the other aspects of the business, you have the business need looking at saying, hey, can I go about now planning a portfolio? Can I shift my initiatives and my investments every year if the products that we deliver didn't really hit the mark in terms of the objectives that were set in place? So the notion around having a 3-year project and to wait for results after 3 years are pretty much gone, where people are trying to get metrics from a deployment standpoint and find out actual users and usage patterns and be able to tie that into the business decisions in there. So the business visibility coupled with the Agile delivery is those integrations are getting stronger. And the method to deliver this is obviously DevOps, because now the notion of having a pipeline and a release pipeline from an end-to-end perspective that everyone in the business, whether it's an executive or whether it's a practitioner in the QA team, has visibility in, is a mandate, because collaboration is essential in terms of meeting the constantly shifting demands. So with that, we've kind of gone through some key areas and identified some key challenges that we see across the enterprise domain, which is what Micro Focus serves. So let's start with just the development stack. Open source is everywhere. We all see it, we all embrace it, and now it's pretty much becoming the de facto standard, either in terms of the CI tools within automation. There's multiple tools. There's not one tool, one test automation framework that is being chosen, or one development stack that is preferred. Every few months, there's a new, a better optimized solution that's out there. Integrating all these pieces together is a constant challenge because you have REST APIs that make it easier, but you still have to go about maintaining and managing those integrations. And having a consolidated view from an end-to-end perspective is really hard, because now you have teams that need to spend their time and effort in terms of just tracking these activities across the board, rather than trying to get, value that they deliver from a customer standpoint. So some of the ways that vendors tackle this is by looking at how do you go about having native integrations. REST APIs is now the de facto, I would say, API framework. And everything that vendors build, they need to be extensible because they no longer have proprietary custom frameworks or custom APIs. You have to share as you go through. It's at the enterprise level, it's all about scale. So the ability to scale is what, again, is a core ask in the future. Scaled Agile framework, Spotify are multiple ways. The teams themselves are distributed across multiple geos. You need to localize the languages in which you have the ability to access the same data, but in a different language. You have different methodologies. So some teams might be comfortable in Scrum. Some teams might be comfortable in terms of a Kanban-based development. And you might have multiple systems that comprise of an entire application. So one could be a mainframe and one could be the mobile app. That's the front end of it. How do you go about managing all these different methodologies, supporting both offshore and nearshore teams that you have kind of using I'd say augmented capabilities in terms of meeting the constant shifts. So one of the things there that you need is you need one unified platform, the ability to be able to pull in all the information from multiple sources, to have one source of truth rather than have multiple dashboards at multiple team levels and someone's doing exports of CSV files or plugging them into a reporting tool behind the scenes. There has to be one I would say, source where you connect all the data streams and be able to report on the traceability of that. From a visibility standpoint, as we have multiple teams and an application no longer is monolithic, you can clearly see that application components are being built and being put together in a pipeline. If the teams are unable to collaborate or have lack of visibility, you have dependencies that they have no idea that they exist. And this could be dependencies both from a development standpoint and also from a quality assurance standpoint. So it could be tests that needed to be rerun in different contexts. Or there might be defects that need to be reported across multiple teams, and there's no need to test them, I would say, a few times between teams in there. Executives, as always, are looking to get a real-time status. What is the status of that key feature or the key theme that we discussed in the last quarterly business review? Do we stand in terms of delivering it today? How do I see that in the dashboard? So the need to see the progress of business initiatives is getting higher and higher. And blockers, again, identifying them earlier, looking at ways to address root cause-based analysis rather than symptom-based analysis is going to be a trend in there. And the only way you can do this is you have appropriate linkages between the multiple entities, whether it's a requirement that's connected to a defect, whether it's a requirement that's broken down into an epic or a user story or a feature that gets tied to a test, and the quality of that test, whether it's a UFT-based test or whether it's a fill-in-based test, whether it is run manually or whether it is run as a part of the CI. All of these assets that are key terms of validation of the quality need to be available, again, through a single interface so that you can share that across teams and people can build the core views that they care about in terms of delivering application software faster. And this, I think, is extremely important because one of the things that we hear loud and clear as we interact with lots of customers is, please don't walk in and tell us that this is the next best tool. So can you go about having a way where you can integrate into our ecosystem? Can you extend and build on my investments that we've made over the past 3 to 5 years, rather than go about trying to walk in with a replace-based method? And the replacement conversation or the consolidation conversation is a natural progression of once you deliver value, rather than a conversation that you start off with. And fundamentally, the empowerment is happening at the practitioner level. So letting development teams, letting QA teams choose their automation frameworks, choose their technology stacks is key. So as executives empower the teams below, they are not looking to tactically make choices on those technology stacks, but they want to make sure that the assets that have been built are reused and repurposed rather than constantly having to shift between tools because the tool is supposed to solve all problems. In here, the idea is you have to be able to connect into these various ecosystems. So if you're a development team that has IDE plugins, I can come and connect and reside in your development stack in there. If there are multiple test automation frameworks, I can pull in any data that you provide from the test automation framework, and it's an agnostic view rather than a mandated rigid view of only these tests can be executed. And the ability to integrate and the ability to synchronize, again, is core because these are the ways of how you pull in multiple data streams into one unified reporting hub. And quality management continues to be the challenge. So we talked about scaled agile, but you'd see that no one talks about scaled quality. What happens to quality as you have multiple teams that are building capabilities? You have the unit testing aspects, you have the Gherkin tests that are being built. Those are at the team level, at the functionality level. You also have the regression suites that happen at the multiple stages of the deployment. But you need to have a view, a comprehensive view of quality from an end-to-end perspective. And what does quality mean in this new agile DevOps domain? It's not just about acceptance tests. It's not just about unit tests. It's also primarily about having the notion of performance. It's also about incorporating static code analysis as part of your nightly build because you need to identify if there are security vulnerabilities much earlier on. And the shift left movement that is talked about quite often is core in terms of just defining what most people call quality gates. The ability to set those gates and implement them as a definition of done is key in terms of preventing those escaped defects or having those flawed implementations that get into production because the amount of testing that's done is very narrow and just functionality based, but doesn't address the other application areas like security, like performance. Now, in such scenarios, what we need is an ability to pull in the information from the application builds because these builds are being rapidly created. Continuous testing is a buzzword you will hear. The ability to pull in test automation framework to acceptance tests that is manual, which is not being deemed worthy of automation, is one of the ways where you also pull in information just from a manual test execution, which doesn't need to be automated through either unit test or through the automation framework. Again, I can't emphasize enough, but performance and security have to be a part of this quality management aspect in there. And last but not least, I think, is the ability to report and provide analytics, real-time dashboards at the product level, the dashboards at the team level, and the ability to aggregate multiple entities starting right from the business requirements all the way to a test run or a defect or even the line of code and the developer who committed this line of code so that you can connect to a collaboration system like Skype or like Slack and be able to have a conversation with the team real time. Gives you the ability to address defects quicker. You want to collaborate, you want to report. And in addition to the traditional reporting capabilities that we have in ALM, we want to go about having an, I'd say, end-to-end analytics view because the history of the assets that are built, you have to have learnings that come out of it. And this is where we are trying to look at how does, I'd say, analytics and algorithms get baked in to the product itself. So robust reporting, the ability to integrate into enterprise reporting solutions using, could be Tableau, could be Power BI, or data-based support framework is the key in terms of plugging into an existing reporting solution. So in our view, you can see as to the lead up in here, quite clearly we have looked at these various factors and invested in ALM Octane Enterprise. So if I mentioned the word enterprise, this is another edition of ALM Octane. So we have two editions in ALM Octane. One is the ALM Octane Enterprise and the ALM Octane Pro. In terms of the enterprise, it comes in with the capabilities similar to ALM, where you can go about doing cross-project asset sharing, cross-project reporting, and it's done in an implementation that is different from an architecture standpoint. And this is what allows us to be able to serve the scaled needs of what an enterprise demands. And we look at ALM Octane Enterprise primarily to extend the value in terms of delivering high-quality applications and also being able to unlock the existing investments. So we emphasized on that. We plug into the CI server, we plug into the IDE, and I'll quickly walk through some of the key integrations that we have in here that make it easy for us to pull in and complement the existing investments and give you the quality management needs for what an enterprise desires once you have the agile planning activities done either in ALM Octane or in another agile full planning tool. So with this, I'd like to just walk through very quickly as to what does a typical flow. Because one of the questions that we get with Octane is we already have an agile project management solution. In this case, you can see that we've highlighted this with Jira as an example, but this could be other tools in there that you might have. And as we talked about the DevOps-based flow and the trends, one of the things you definitely want to look at is the agile team planning capabilities tied to the business, because the business visibility is extremely important. So this could be the Micro Focus PPM, or it could be other PPM solutions, but this integration is the key. In our case with Micro Focus PPM, we have out-of-the-box adapters to Jira, Rally, version 1, ALM Octane, and that's how, from a business standpoint, there is visibility around the delivery as well as the quality of things. As we look at ALM Octane, we look at this as the hub where you can do the quality management aspects and be able to connect these multiple Jira instances and multiple Jira projects into ALM Octane, both from a synchronizing standpoint. So synchronizing is a capability that we added in our last release in December, and we can now extend the quality management capabilities in Octane, manual tests, Gherkin tests, discovering Selenium tests, and defining also the tests that are coming in from, say, Load Runner, Performance Center, or Storm Runner Load. And we have Fortify integration. So the comprehensive quality that I just mentioned is already baked in through the integrations through the CI server that Octane already provides. The IDE plugins, we provide 3 of these in here with IntelliJ, with Eclipse, and Visual Studio. And we are looking at other IDEs, primarily cloud-based in the future, to be able to integrate with them as well. So I think VSTS is one of those that keeps coming up. In this scenario, you can see that there is multiple tools. You have Bitbucket instead of Git. You have the ability to use multiple test automation frameworks, including UFT, including our load testing solutions from Micro Focus. But there's a lot of open source solutions as well. Could be Selenium, could be others. ALM.NET, again, continues to be the core in terms of building those regression tests and having the ability to be triggered from a release pipeline perspective. And from a CI/CD perspective, we can connect into those natively. So ALM Octane connects into Jenkins, connects into TeamCity or into Bamboo. There's actually an SDK, so you can connect into custom CI servers as well, as long as we have the adapter in place. And why do we connect into the pipeline? First is to have complete visibility around the jobs that are being triggered as a part of the application build, bringing the notion of quality and mapping that quality into the application. So many of you may have seen the application modules and the quality modules that are built into Octane, and that gives us the ability to connect and automate test in a CI server to a user story or a feature. And with that one-time configuration, at any time when you have a build being put together, you have a very clear view of what the quality of that feature or the user story is. And lastly but not least, which we talked about earlier, is we want to give value with the existing investments. So you have the ability to connect this, but if you choose to have one solution, right from the agile planning all the way to the quality delivery, Octane can do that. Octane can definitely integrate into Jira or other agile solutions in order to be able to pull in this information through synchronizing, either provided by Micro Focus or through some of our partner solutions. So with that, also wanted to give you a quick overview around just the scaled agile framework, because Micro Focus as an organization is focused on serving the enterprise. we look at the multiple editions, and you can see us in the ALM Octane Pro edition that we launched at the early last year in 2017. And we were focused around the notion of a workspace, which aligns pretty much to the notion of a program. So when you look at solutions like Jira, this is where Jira is at the team level. So the integrations that I just walked through are primarily the integrations between a team and a program. In ALM Octane, we have the ability to define multiple teams, focus on the program scope rather than the team scope in there. The Octane Enterprise, also a new addition that came out late last year, is the layer above. This is also a very easy upgrade, so you can move in from Pro to Enterprise and now have a shared space between the two systems where you can govern the entire, I'd say, few projects quite easily rather than manage individual workspaces or one individual projects. And finally, we look at our PPM solution as a best-of-breed portfolio management. So the need to have the finances, the demand, the resource management, and the tight integrations that we have built into ALM Octane give us a very strong value proposition from a scaled agile framework standpoint. This slide, I think, is a very quick overview in terms of just an end-to-end integrations that are all available free of charge out of the box from Octane. You can see it's a combination of synchronizing to the builds, to the IDE, to the source code integrations, to security, to testing, performance, on functional, and even manual tests in there. In our upcoming release, we'll actually have integrations also into our Sprinter solution, so we'll be able to pull those into Octane as well. And last but not least is to give you the view that both sides of the house with ALM and QC and with ALM Octane here are available for the hybrid lifecycle. Just like Zoe mentioned, you have many a time situations where multiple teams are using multiple methodologies in the enterprise, and we need to be able to synchronize them or at least move the assets and have them connected. With ALM Octane, you have JGit as an implementation. That's the cup that you see from the plus and the minus signs in there. You have the Elastic platform, which is primarily the search capabilities, and you have REST APIs that is baked into it. So the platform capabilities are different from ALM in there, but it's looking at driving some of those scenarios that we just discussed in terms of collaboration, in terms of asset sharing, in terms of helping teams identify issues much earlier. And the out-of-the-box integrations give us a much easier framework to plug into your tool chain rather than come walk in with a rip and replace message. So with that, the other part I'd like to talk about is there are scenarios in terms of just moving data. So one of the other questions that we constantly hear is, we love ALM QC, but we just wish if we can access that over a Chrome browser or if we can access it over a Mac. And one of the things that we are working on right now is a data migrator utility for scenarios where we can pull in some of these data and move it into ALM Octane-based projects. So this is not a project upgrade. Okay, so I want to make sure that everyone understands that, realizes that this is not a project upgrade. You need to stand up ALM Octane standalone. There is some initial configuration that needs to happen, mainly from a customization and user management standpoint. But what we're building behind the scenes is a tool that can move some of these data from a manual test runs, and releases into Octane so that you can now access the same data as an ALM QC, but in Octane, in a browser agnostic, in an OS agnostic manner. And if you would like to get some further details on it, please drop a note to ALM Octane Migrator at hpe.com, and we can respond to you as to the next step. So today, this is again a proof of concept, and we are looking to release this in the upcoming weeks. So with that, I think it's just time for a quick demo. Let me go ahead and walk through in the short time that we have and just switch to the dashboard. So we have a few minutes, and what I'd like to just emphasize on, if you haven't had a chance to look at ALM Octane, is just the rich capabilities that have been built into Octane. We have the My Work, which is the personalized dashboard where you can get a notification on any entity that you try to choose, or you can follow, or you can have team members notify those to you. We have a dashboard, the one that you're looking at right now, in terms of just tracking the quality of an application, whether you're looking at status of the application modules you can create custom widgets. And this is the one that I mentioned that we have OData support for. So you can actually connect this to Tableau or Power BI. If you'd like to just track defects, you can go about tracking those defects as well in here. And just from a lifecycle flow perspective, you can see us having a very basic implementation of requirements. And one of the discussions for us is to look at this more as a wiki or a SharePoint, or from some of the competitors could be like Confluence from Atlassian, in terms of where teams do more of the elaboration, and then break that down into a specific backlog. And the key differentiator, again, for us is the notion of tests. So the tests, manual tests, Gherkin tests, UFT tests, you can define and you can trigger these tests right here from and connect them from a traceability standpoint. So quality is built in. And the same backlogs then can be prioritized. You can use WSJF-based prioritization. You can do capacity planning, move that into the teams. The teams, again, have their own views of a storyboard. Again, break them down into specific tasks, and you can track them in the task board. But the idea here, again, is tests is baked in. So quality is baked in every module. And you would not see a test plan and a test lab. And the reason for no longer a test plan, test lab is we are looking at building those same capabilities from a planning standpoint, from a scheduling standpoint, from a parameters and a configuration standpoint into the quality module. So the ability to discover tests or define standalone tests is also a part of the quality module. And this is a module that gives you more of an application view. So as the product becomes more of the delivery rather than, I'd say, just test plan. Yes.
Just letting you know that we cannot see your screen.
Oh.
Yeah, Van Dan, can you restart your screen share?
Okay.
There
How
you
about
go.
now?
Now we see your dashboard. Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
So sorry about that. Just as a quick recap, maybe I was just talking by myself here, but my apologies for that. Looking at just the My Work from a notification standpoint, a dashboard in terms of the quality module and the OData-based integrations, the defects module, and the ability to go about breaking down requirements, the backlogs and the emphasis around tests in there, and having tests and tasks you can see in the same view for our teams so that they can break down their features and user stories, but also create tests in the same view. And from a quality standpoint, again, from an end-to-end perspective, we can define application modules and connect them to the automation tests or the manual tests that we define. And the core thing that makes us more DevOps ready is the ability to integrate into the CI server. So these are the pipeline modules in terms of the integrations with Jenkins, where we literally discovered the entire pipeline, or also with TeamCity and Bamboo. And we actually had one of our partners extend this to GoCD recently, so we have an integration into GoCD as well. So I know we are short of time, and I think in the demo we had a little bit of a glitch, but wanted to just share with you a couple of key links. You see this also on just YouTube. If you search in ALM Octane, you should see an ALM Octane walkthrough. It's about a 20-minute odd walkthrough to give you an end-to-end view, which is created by one of our pre-sales experts. So you'll have a very quick overview in 20 minutes from an end-to-end perspective. Our documentation has now all been online. So if you just look at ALM Octane Help Center, you'll see that as well. And if you have a chance to go about signing up to our SaaS instance, you can get a whole bunch of trials signed up. So you can have a very quick access to ALM Octane as part of a SaaS trial. And the one that I'm sharing right now is something that you'll get a link with within a few minutes that you can play around with and try out some of the capabilities that we talked about. So with that, let me now switch back to the slide. And let me hand it back to Zoe or Alvin.
Thank you, Van Dan. Thank you all for attending today. One of the slides that you will receive is we have a link of follow-up assets, whether that's going to be the free trial links, whether that's going to be specific data sheets or brochures. Those will be answered as well. And so you'll have the availability to easily access those. And we've seen lots of questions come in through the question marks. So I'm going to hand it off to Alvin first, who's going to be the moderator, and Vanda and I will try to answer as many questions.
Right, thank you, Zoe. That was a really good integration, talk about the integration between ALM and the future of Octane. I want to thank Van Dan for a very good presentation, and Zoe for your updates on where ALM and the future of ALM for us that are active users. Let's start with a couple of questions that have come in. We've gotten a lot of questions, so some of these questions and the answer will be posted offline in the link that you received after the call today. Let's start with the first question. It says, how does the license sharing with Quality Center licenses with ALM work?
Van Dan, do you want to take that?
Sure. So with the Quality Center integration, in our upcoming March release, we will have the integration from Quality Center to ALM Octane, the Pro edition in there. So you will have the license sharing capabilities kind of natively built into the product itself.
Okay, let's go to the next Q&A question. Just give me 1 second. Let me get back to it. Okay, let's see. Get back to our questions. I apologize. A little technical difficulties here.
and I can see some of them. So one of the questions was, is ALM only available on SaaS model? The answer is no. ALM is available on SaaS and on-premise. For ALM Octane, it's available on-premise on a Linux, Windows, and on beta for a Docker container version, and then, of course, SaaS as well, and ALM is available on the traditional on-premises or the SaaS model as well.
Okay. Let's take another question. Is it possible to migrate and upgrade projects from ALM.net to Octane?
So I think I covered that to a little extent in there. We don't have the notion of a project migrator, but we are working on a data migrator. So we want to be able to migrate the data, specifically the manual tests and the defects and releases from ALM or Quality Center into ALM Octane. So it's more of a data migration and not necessarily the construct of a project migration.
All right, great. Let's take another question. Van Dam, can you please elaborate a little bit on the database change feature?
Sure. So if I understand the question, from the database perspective, ALM Octane by itself is a different database schema and has a very different implementation in terms of how the projects are saved in it versus ALM and QC. So that's what allows us to be able to upgrade multiple projects in a single schema upgrade versus in ALM and QC, which is individual. So not sure if that is the question, but that's the way I interpret that one.
Okay, thank you. Let's take one more. Does the ALM and Octane API provide on-demand capabilities to allow the integration of systems to be notified when there's a change? An example, like if a release change was created.
So I guess the question is more around notifications in there, and the answer is definitely yes. There are APIs in terms of doing notifications. So ALM Octane, they're built into the product. Notifications could be email notifications or comments or even through collaboration. And on ALM, similarly, we have built collaboration integrations into Skype. We have the comments or the add comments feature that we're looking at, as well as we have email notifications in there. So the notification capability is available on both products.
Okay, great. All right, and I think that's all the time we have for today. I'd like to thank you again for attending the Vivid webinar sponsored by Micro Focus today. We'd like to talk about a few upcoming webinars for us. On the 13th, there's a SIG talk about quality and testing. That's at 9 a.m. PST time. And if you're on the East Coast, that's at noon. Also on the 15th, we have another SIG talk for IT operations on ITSMA and hybrid cloud management, and that's at 8 a.m. on PST time as well. And the last that we have is on the 28th of March, but we have more to follow. We have some every month. This one is on accelerating high-quality app delivery with Micro Focus DevOps Suite, and that's also at 8 a.m. on the PST time, noon in Eastern. Thank you again for attending today. Just one last note, there will be a short survey that you can opt into for more information. You can click the link on the screen and it will automatically populate the survey data. And just click and you should see the survey come up. Thank you for your time today, and we want to wish you a great day. Thank you.